Don't forget to go to the Community tab and vote weekly for upcoming topics. It will open most Tuesdays through Mondays, and your original suggestions are always appreciated. Slap on your pointy ears as we take a look at Mind Melds on this edition of...
Yeah, it's the best five, worst five, no one of me. Yeah, it's the best five, worst five tracks ever seen.
The Vulcan art of Mind Melds has served many purposes across 56 years of Star Trek. It's unsurprising that this list heavily leans on Tuvok and Spock as the two most active melders in the franchise. At fifth worst, one word. In Requiem for Methuselah, after a particularly difficult encounter, Spock melds with a sleeping Kirk and implants a suggestion to forget the woman he'd become attached to. Not only is this an extreme invasion of privacy, but either makes no sense or brings up a really interesting question. This is one of the last handful of episodes in TOS's run, and by now, Kirk's already lost a wife he spent months with and knowingly had let Edith die. Why would this created woman Kirk spent a few hours with weigh on him as heavily as what he's been through? Or maybe every time Kirk has one of his famed encounters of the week, Spock is just regularly melding his love for these women away, so he can remain focused on being captain. Number 4. Forgettable first. The first time we see a mind meld, it isn't quite fleshed out yet. Spock just kind of awkwardly gropes this crazed patient's face while McCoy weirdly watches. Spock does get the info he needs to try and help Kirk from ending up the way this guy did, but that's all I can say positive about our initial look at this intimate Vulcan procedure. Number 3. Bigger, bolder, and uncut. The Devil in the Dark is a mostly beautiful premise with a message of trying to better understand life forms, even when they're nothing like you. However, the execution and pacing take this solid premise and make it excruciating to watch at times. The worst of which is the 10 minutes of mind melding and speculation. It's moving at times as Spock comes to understand the pain of the rock creature just trying to repopulate her species, but it also wears thin really quickly. Number 2. Machine Meld. By TOS's second season, we find out mind melds are not limited to biological life forms. And weirdly, by Picard, we even see androids can initiate mind melds. This entry is for another uncomfortably long meld as Spock gropes around the Nomad probe to figure out why this 21st century Earth probe went genocidal. What is interesting with this one is seeing the melder retaining some measure of what they shared in the meld. And Kirk has to snap Spock out of thinking he's a malfunctioning AI. Big idea without the best execution. The worst mind meld in Trek? Number 1. Mind Assault. Bucking the trend of Spock's melds, which are mostly just poorly executed television, with Enterprise first mind meld, in which the episode is a decent analogy to assault, and where the meld itself is just a horrible thing to happen to a character. In a time period when mind melds are taboo in Vulcan society, T'Pol is forcibly attacked during a meld with a non-logical Vulcan. Archer comes to her defense in the aftermath and stands up to her attacker in the episode's high point. In the next season, though, she'd have to deal with the societal repercussions of her meld, in a really bad analogy to assault survivors being believed. This one meld is terrible for T'Pol, and sets up a really questionable at best mini-arc about a really sensitive topic. Now for the best in mind melds. Number 5. Make it up as you go along. Another entry that's just a single word accompanied by a meld. This was not in the original script, but added during shooting to give the possibility of a new life for Spock down the road, as he transfers his Katra, or essence of being, into McCoy. This sets up a series of melds in the next movie where his father melds with Kirk to no avail, and finally a mind bridging by T'Pau of Vulcan to make Spock whole again. Sometimes simplicity just works. Number 4. Dark Thoughts. If you ever wondered what a Vulcan nightmare looked like, we find out in Voyager's Random Thoughts. While investigating B'Elanna's transfer of a violent thought, Tuvok uncovers a black market of dark images communicated through telepathy. While trying to expose the ringleader, he essentially shows him the Star Trek version of the Ring video. It gives us a look under the hood of the usually calm and collected Vulcan exterior. Number 3. Outpouring of emotion. Bringing the art of the meld back to Trek and TNG, we're treated to Mark Leonard and Patrick Stewart getting to do some incredible acting. As an aging Sarek attempts one final peace negotiation, it's revealed that one of his aides has been telepathically propping him up. When Sarek dismisses him, the depths of the disease he suffers from become known, as he loses emotional control. So Picard offers to loan him control through a mind meld. Sarek starts acting like Picard for a while, and Picard has to deal with all the pain of Sarek's existence, where he's walked the fine line between Vulcan traditions while having human wives and children that he wasn't great at getting along with. After the passing of Sarek, Spock is able to meld with Picard and finally gets a sense of closure about the angst between he and his father. Number 2. Lost in Logic. In the best of the quick, straightforward melds, Tuvok mind melds with Nas just before she departs, after the two have spent months surviving together in a mini-universe. Between having a wife and just generally being Vulcan, he can't express in words how he feels about her love for him. The mind meld gives her instant clarity of understanding, and is just a wonderful moment in Trek. The best meld in Trek? Killer Instinct. When a murder occurs on board in an open and shut case with murder weapon and a confession, Tuvok refuses to close the case until he understands the logic behind this pointless death. He offers horror movie legend Brad Dourif a mind meld to try and give him some measure of control of his violent impulses. It works, and the next times we see Lon Suter in the episode, he's calm and collected. But what every doctor in the franchise has warned a Vulcan about before proceeding with a mind meld happens, and we get to see the unintended consequences. It lets Tim Russ do some of his best acting in the show, as he loses his Vulcan mental control and starts lashing out as the Doctor attempts Vulcan medicine to bring him under control. This out-of-control Tuvok is a sight to behold, as he at first tries to kill Suter, but is pacified by seemingly his own words coming out of Chucky's mouth. What's your favorite mind meld in Star Trek?